Hi everybody, this is Cheryl Richardson, and it's that time again this week for our Facebook coaching session. So I'm here to welcome you and to answer your questions and offer you some coaching as best I can. Over the next, 45 minutes to an hour we usually go for. So let's just start by, Facebook has changed their Facebook Live. Hi David, good, I'm glad it works, thank you. Facebook, I just downloaded. Every time I do a Facebook Live, I always update the app first. It's really smart to do that because it improves connection rate, and you also get to see what new features Facebook has. So I uploaded or downloaded or updated, I mean. Hi Robin from the lake. Hi honey. Hi Larry too, my angel. So anyway, I updated the Facebook app and discovered that they've added all of these really crazy cool features. I'm going to see if I can show you one of them. Let me see if I can do this. You guys will have to tell me if this works. Like, look at this. Look at how cool this is. I am now a cartoon, and we could do Facebook Live as a cartoon. Wouldn't that be great? Or let's see, this one, a colored cartoon. I like that idea too. And then I'm just going to do this one. I'll come back. Look at this one. You ready? Let's see. Wait a minute. No, it's supposed to like, oh well, I'm like Poupon's mother here, right? I mean, these are crazy. I can like lift weights. All right, it's insane, and I could just go nuts with all of it. I hope you all saw that. Were you able to see it? If so, like give me a thumbs up or a heart or something so I know. Yeah, you did. Okay, great, Teresa, thanks. I know, isn't that amazing? And there's like a ton of them. I can do all kinds of different things. Thank you for letting me know. It was really fun. There's a lot of fun things. And I'm definitely gonna practice doing, I don't know, I feel like I wanna do a Facebook Live, just like a mini little video of the cartoon one. It sort of makes me feel like I could be a superhero. Wouldn't that be fun? Anyway, I am here to support you, and before I do, what do I want to tell you? I want to tell you that my sister Carrie's book got launched today. Remember, I spoke about it last week. As a matter of fact, hey Emmy, welcome. I see you. As a matter of fact, let me do this. Let me show you. I'm going to show you the cover. Let's see if we can do this. This is another thing that Facebook changed, was how to be able to show you. Let's see. Can you see? There we go. Yes. Can you see that? Oh, look, it puts a light on it. I have to hold it way out though. What your clutter is trying to tell you. Uncover the message in the mess and reclaim your life. Sorry, Carrie, I can't hold it out far enough. I don't even know. But anyway, her book just launched today. So if you have issues with clutter, and who doesn't, right? I actually have a few places that really need to get handled myself. But if you have an issue with clutter, or you have a friend that has an issue with clutter, this would be the book to get them for sure. This is not, by the way, let me just say, this is not your, oh, let me just inspire you to go through and throw out all the things you don't love kind of book. It's very different than that. It's a book that really looks at what your clutter is trying to tell you, not only what clutter says about your life, your inner life and your outer life, but also one of the cool things Carrie has done is really looked, based on her work with clients, looked at what a cluttered car says about you, what a cluttered bedroom says about you, what a cluttered basement is trying to tell you. So it's a great perspective. She looks at both inner and outer clutter, and then she is a really practical, when it comes to getting rid of stuff, in the most efficient, loving, planet-supporting way. Carrie and her wife Missy have got that down to a science. So anyway, pick up the book. It's and don't, I would say, get the physical book rather than the ebook. I mean, the ebook's not a bad thing to get, but I just find when I was reading this book, there was lots of things that I wanted to underline and wanted to refer back to. There's great resources in there. I don't know, I just find it easier to do that with a paper book. I don't know about all of you, but anyway, What else do I want to tell you? Anything else? No, let me say hi to a few people as we get started, and then I'm going to start taking your questions. And so if you'd like to get a question in early, all you need to do is, all you need to do is put a Q in front of your question. It'll make it easier for me when I'm scrolling through to see, to pick out the questions that are here. So let me just say hi to Teresa and Bionic Gabe, welcome, and Judy and Gina and Susan from Seattle, and Marilyn, hi Marilyn, and Sinead, thank you, Jessica and Paula from Boston, Robin, Janice, Elaine, and Inukshuk, I hope I'm saying that right, and Elena from New Zealand, welcome, and Penelope from South Carolina, welcome to you. All right, so let's start with questions, shall we? Let's get right to it. Let me take a sip of water. And I'm curious, by the way, let me just ask all of you. So it's 7:30 at night Eastern time, and I'm just wondering, for how many of you is this a much better time than the other times I've held it, which is sometimes noontime or 6 p.m. Eastern? If it's a good time for you, just give me a thumbs up. Send a thumbs up across. If it's the best time for you, let's say, send a thumbs up across, because I've been doing a lot of different times, and I'm going to continue to do different times and different days just to get a sense of what appeals to the most people. So clearly this is a good time for people. And I'll be sort of mixing it up for a while until I land on a great time. Hi, Donna. Yes, that was hilarious, wasn't it? I loved it. So many fun things we can do with Facebook. And I may just have to throw one in there depending on what we're talking about. It may come up as something that I need to do. Let me get some light on here. It's getting dark around here. Hold on. Okay. So let's go with your questions, shall we? And I see lots of people with clutter issues. I know those well. Those are things that never go away. Okay, so put a Q in front of your question in the comments, and I will find it. Hi, missed the name of the book and the author, Sandra. Thank you. It is, I don't think I said, Carrie Richardson, Kerri. Let me do it this way again. Carrie Richardson. Come on. There we go. Carrie Richardson, What Your Clutter is Trying to Tell You. And I'm going to have to get like one of those big selfie sticks so I can hold it far enough out. What Your Clutter is Trying to Tell You by Carrie Richardson. Hopefully, Sandra, you can get that. I'll also, I put resources in the Facebook post afterwards. I'll edit it, so I'll add Carrie's book in there. You'll be able to see the link and find it. Okay, great. I've been struggling with emotional eating issues for years. I even had weight loss surgery and still put on weight. What is your understanding on how to deal with this? Thank you. So Chris, I'm going to say first of all, as I've said sometimes on these Facebook Lives, that that's really a therapy issue rather than a coaching issue. I just want to make that distinction up front because I think it's important for people to know the difference. That said, it certainly comes up in coaching as an issue for people, and then I'll often send them to certain resources, whether it's people or books or workshops or whatever. One of the best resources I've found, Chris, is Geneen Roth's work. I really am a huge fan of her work, and her most recent book about eating was called Women, Food, and God. I'll put it in the resource post. And, one of the things, Chris, she talks about, so Women, Food, and God is by Geneen Roth. And one of the things she talks about is how if we don't deal with the emotional underpinnings or the emotional source of eating issues, then we can have all the surgery in the world we want. We can go on all the diets. You can exercise till the cows come home. You're going to have a hard time being at peace in your body and losing weight if in fact that's what you want to do. So I think it's not a simple answer, but here's the good news, Chris. to me, dealing with body issues, eating, those sorts of things, as Geneen says, is a really wonderful doorway into getting to know yourself and understand yourself and love yourself more. So if you think of this journey as less about losing weight and more about a doorway to a deeper, more intimate, more loving relationship with yourself, then as you take it on, it's not about watching the scale, it's about watching your life. You know, and Geneen talks about how we eat is how we live. She talks about eating issues being a doorway that we step through into a journey of inquiry where we start to really look at what's driving my eating behavior. You say here that you've struggled with emotional eating issues. So that tells me you know that they're emotionally based, which they are for most people. There's a lot of factors involved, by the way. But what's great about that is that you understand that. So that's where you want to begin. So Geneen Roth's work, I know that Geneen does some retreats, and I think that her retreats are wonderful. I've seen her work in action. As a matter of fact, several years ago, Geneen was doing her first online retreat, and she asked me to facilitate it for her because she was new to online courses. This is several years ago. And I remember, so I did the whole course with her. I facilitated it for her audience, and I was like feverishly taking notes while I was taking the course. There was so much good information in that course, and she really gets it. You know, she's gained weight, lost weight. She's been at a healthy body weight for her for a very long time, and she's worked with tons of women, and I just think it's a great resource. So I would check her out. And Judy, here we go, another question. I'm overweight. I know I need to change my eating and exercise, but I just can't seem to find the motivation. I enjoy eating. Makes me feel good in a way that nothing else does. What to do? Same exact thing, Judy. You know, what the two of you have in common is you recognize there's more going on than just the right diet or exercise. I remember 4 years ago when I was talking with Geneen about my own body issues. And I said to her, you know, I had lost 30 pounds before my husband Michael got sick back in, I want to say like around 10 years ago. I had lost 30 pounds. I was in great shape. I felt fantastic. I felt better than I could remember in my whole life. And then Michael got sick. And over the next 4 years, as we dealt with this illness, I slowly put the weight back on. And it was heartbreaking. It's horrible to lose a bunch of weight, to feel great, and then to put it all back on. And it was really, and what I knew, Judy and Chris, I was very conscious that I was using food to just get myself through this very stressful time, because I didn't have it in me to do anything. Like if going back, and I knew better, by the way, I teach this stuff, but food was easy to turn to. It was comforting. It was a friend. It was a companion. It soothed me when I was scared about whether Michael when he was going to get better, if he was going to get better. It was really, it wasn't something that I wanted to give up. And I remember when Michael got better and I started to get back in shape and wanted to take off the weight, I said something to Geneen like, you know, I'm just going to go back on the program I went on before, and I'm going to lose the weight, and then I'll practice what you write about. And she said to me, you can do that, Cheryl, but based on my experience, 99.9% of the time when women go on diets, they lose the weight and then they gain it back, and they usually gain back more, but more importantly, they feel horrible. They just feel horrible about themselves. And so, and she said every period of deprivation just invites a binge, a binge metaphorically, like any time you deprive yourself of anything, you just ultimately want more. She was right. And so I made a very firm decision 4 years ago that I was not going to diet ever again. And instead, I began over time I spent 2 years, Judy and Chris, 2 years paying attention to every time I went to put food in my mouth when I wasn't hungry. I would ask myself, what's going on, Cheryl? A lot of times when I was pissed, I would eat because I didn't know how to express my anger. didn't feel like the appropriate thing to do. I wanted to be a nice girl, and I didn't know how to express my anger. If I was frustrated by something, it was easy to just like shove something in my mouth and shove down the frustration because I just was uncomfortable dealing with it. So I learned so much about myself because I used it as a doorway, and that's what I'm talking about. Using your issues with food as a doorway to a deeper understanding of who you are and what you need and what's important. That's what I would recommend for both of you and anyone else, of course, who's dealing with body issues, and who isn't nowadays, huh? Who isn't? All right, let's see. What other questions do we have here? Let's see. Paula says, advice on dealing with depression and severely low self-worth. Paula, these are therapy issues, not coaching issues. And yes, as a coach, if I were working with you, I would absolutely be referring you to a good psychologist, somebody who is experienced in dealing with depression. Low self-esteem, low self-worth often go along with depression. Depression is a mental illness that deserves treatment, deserves support, and that support can come in a number of ways. And so I would really encourage you, if you go to, I'm going to make a note, if you go to the Psychology Today website, to the Find a Therapist section, it's a really great section. They've got lots of people who, lots of really good therapists, and you can read all about them, and you can read about the kind of therapy that they practice. And you want to look for somebody who specifically deals with depression, has a lot of experience with that. And be open, please be open and willing to consider all kinds of treatment options, because you deserve to live a good life. Okay, Abby says, I need help with staying centered and calm when dealing with family in difficult situations. Trying to stay as the bigger person, but it's so easy to be triggered. Are there practical tricks you have to help? Well, Abby, there's something so interesting when you talk about trying to be the bigger person. I always talk about, I've mentioned this book here before called Growing Yourself Back Up by John Lee. Grow Yourself Back Up. And in that book, Abby, he talks about something called emotional regression. What happens when we get our buttons pushed and we suddenly go from being an adult to being a kid? And sometimes we're a really frightened young child. Sometimes we're a bratty teenager. Sometimes we're a rebellious 20-year-old. And it happens to everybody. So a lot of times when we're dealing with difficult family issues, we aren't dealing with adult family members. We're dealing with their regressed selves. This is especially true when we're going through difficult situations like loss, illness, job changes, when a family member, when somebody in your life is really struggling with whoops, that's not going to work. When someone in your life is struggling with some kind of difficult life situation, the chances are they're going to be in more of a regressed state. So when you say you're trying to be the bigger person, the key to staying centered in any difficult situation, whether it's with family, with your boss, with a coworker, with a client, if you have a business, a friend, a stranger, anybody, we see lots of, road rage is a great example of emotional regression. All of the stuff you see on your Facebook pages when people start bitching and complaining or going crazy about, political issues or making judgments, 9.9 times out of 10, you are not reading a post or a comment from an adult. You're reading a post or a comment from somebody who's in a regressed state, who has their buttons pushed, and is oftentimes providing an exaggerated response based on their own earlier wounding. It's part of the reason why I cut people slack, and I have empathy, usually, for when people post things on my pages, which is very rare, I might say. I'm really blessed with a wonderful community. But when people do post things on my pages that are difficult, I try to remember that most of us, at our core, are really loving people. It's just when we're scared, when our buttons are pushed, we go into a younger age, and suddenly we are no longer writing or commenting or behaving as adults. We're behaving as frightened children. And so the best thing you can do, Abby, is take space. When you feel your buttons are pushed, I don't care if you're in your family home, go into the bathroom, lock the door, and just breathe. And literally, as you breathe, imagine yourself growing yourself up. Sometimes what I'll do when I get my buttons pushed is I'll say, okay, Cheryl, I'll close my eyes and say, Cheryl, how old do you feel right now? I will say this to myself, Abby. Cheryl, how old do you feel right now? And I pay attention to the first number that occurs to me. And then I just kind of explore, okay, what happened around 13? Or what happened around 5? Or what happened around 27 that feels like what's going on right now? And just the ability to be objective, to ask that question, means you've suddenly stepped out of that regress state, and now there's an adult trying to get a hold of the situation. Now you're becoming the bigger, more mature person because you're being a grown-up. And you know what I've discovered, Abby, is very often when I can grow myself up and I'm an adult in any situation, I usually am more patient. I step back. I keep my mouth shut. I observe. I'm more loving, I'm more tolerant, and I'm smarter about when the hell to get out of Dodge instead of staying where I am and trying to, speak German to people who are speaking English or speak Italian to people who are speaking Spanish. That's what's happening in a regress state. When any of us are in a regress state, it's like we're speaking two different languages, and that's why when there's difficult situations going on, a lot of just mean things get said that are unnecessary, and people just, mean things sometimes that just break families up for a lifetime. But you can't grow other people up. You can only grow yourself up. So again, stepping back, getting some space. The moment you feel any kind of, energy rising in your body, you are about to enter into a regress state, and your job is to get away and breathe and say to yourself, okay, how old do I feel right now? Sweetheart, how old do you feel right now? What's going on? If you talk to yourself like an adult, you will recruit the adult you to respond to the kid you that needs something. And sometimes that kid needs to get out of the situation. Take a break. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. So let's see. I hope that's helpful, Abby. Teresa says, I just had a full hysterectomy because of endometrial cancer. Do you have any ways to cope? I've been feeling sad. Teresa, I would absolutely recommend Chris Northrup's book, any of Chris's books, but I would pick up Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. She talks about the sadness that comes from a hysterectomy. In terms of the cancer, I would read anything that Chris Carr writes, because as I've said before, one of the things I so appreciate about Chris Carr is that she is empowering people to not be terrified of the C word of cancer, but instead to recognize the amazing ability we have to heal our bodies. You have a right to be sad, Teresa. You've lost something really important. The sadness isn't going to be there forever, and you will get through it. But please, God, give yourself permission to grieve. Anytime we lose a body part, anytime, we're dealing with illness in that way, there's a component of grief. And with that grief can come anger and frustration and, just allow yourself to have the range of emotions that you have. Allow yourself to feel exactly how you feel, and allow yourself to grieve your uterus, and then over time, it would be interesting for you to look at what you can add to your life that feels like it, I don't want to say takes the place of your uterus, but is a womb that feels healing for you, that feels like, what can you add to your life? This can come in many forms. What kind of ritual could you even do to really honor that part of you that needed to be removed, and to honor your body for continuing on strong and healthy, even though that part is gone? What can you add to your life to feel like you can integrate that experience? Lots of love to you, sweetheart. I'm going to put you in my prayer book, prayer book right here, my red prayer book, because of my dear friend, Megan Watterson, who I call Mary Magdalene because she really is. And red is the color of her. That's our Mary Magdalene color. And so I have a red prayer book. And Teresa, you and your sadness are going in there. Sadness can be a beautiful thing, by the way, Teresa. It's, grief returns us to ourselves in the most profound way. So I wish you all the best with this journey. Make this journey mean something for you. Do something with this grief that you feel. Use it to help you grow and to become more conscious and become more loving and to raise your self-esteem, because you know what'll happen? 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 20 years from now, you'll look back and you'll say that hysterectomy was the best thing I ever did. Okay. Thank you, Lynn, for the feedback on this week's newsletter. I appreciate that. Terry says, what do you do when your husband doesn't support your inner journey work? I get this question a lot. I also get the question, what do you do when your partner doesn't support you in clearing clutter? And Carrie's going to have to take that one because we don't have enough time for that one. But what do you do when your husband doesn't support your inner journey work? Well, it depends on how he doesn't support it. If you mean, Terry, that he doesn't do it with you, you do it anyway. And you become a power of example. If he teases you about it or gives you a hard time or makes fun of you about it, you put boundaries up and you tell him to stop. I love you. I know that you may not feel aligned with the kind of work that I'm doing, and I respect that, but I ask you to respect my choices. Please don't make fun of it. I think that you can do that. I think that I've said this before, that having worked with a lot of men, I think that it can be scary for men when their partners take on this work and they don't know where they're going to go or what's going to happen. And some part of them that they're not even conscious of is afraid, like, my goodness, what's this going to mean for our relationship? What's this going to mean for our marriage? And that fear can sometimes prevent them from exploring right along with you. So I think it's important to include your partner in your journey, share some of what you're learning. Like, for example, I do it all the time with Michael when we're driving in the car and I'm learning something new. I'll play audios for him because he actually really, my husband's actually very open and committed to his own growth. I wouldn't have married him if he wasn't. I checked that out before I even dated him. But he, he'll listen to stuff in the car with me, new authors, new audiobooks, new information that I'm really interested in, and he'll get on board with it. And I'll just, I'll make a point when we're driving in the car to go ahead and turn that stuff on and see what he thinks. When I was studying the Enneagram, which is a personality, really kind of like a personality profiling system that I think captures the spiritual essence of who people are, he wasn't really like totally on board at first, but I got myself a CD program and I put it in the car and we were listening to it and he was like, wow, that's interesting. Boy, that sounds like me. And the next thing I know, he was hooked. So sometimes you can do that. There are times when in a marriage, in a relationship, when we take on this journey of self-empowerment and consciousness. And the more conscious we become, the more evolved, or the more confident we become, the more, what do I want to say? Evolve sounds like such a lofty word. That's not what I mean. But the more committed we are to our own inner lives and to honoring our feelings and to healing, sometimes we do discover that we're in relationships with people who want absolutely nothing to do with that. They're, for whatever reason, I don't know why. I mean, I could give you a number of reasons, possibilities, but sometimes we discover there's no interest in that. And what happens is you come face to face with the reality that either you both need to go to counseling to work through this or the relationship needs to end. I always say that any relationship, if two parties are willing to come to the table to talk about what's going on, to own their own stuff, and to do their own work, pretty much any relationship can work. But if you've got someone who is unwilling to come to the table, who is unwilling to respect you or to hear what you have to say, isn't open, as long as you're presenting it respectfully and gracefully, if you've got someone who's unwilling to go to counseling when your relationship is just a mess, you're probably going to be faced with having to end that relationship or threaten the end of that relationship in order to get that person on board. And but boy, you better be ready to walk away, because you never want to threaten the end of a relationship unless it's really truly a last resort, in which case there's great resources for that as well. I know plenty of wonderful therapists who really are like last resort therapists for couples that do phenomenal work. So there's that possibility as well. All right, Lacey says, Cheryl, how did you find your passion in your career as a writer? I've had many jobs and career changes, and I've been trying to find what makes me happy, as well as financially stable. Balance is such a struggle for me. So, Lacey, I started writing when I was 12, so I've kept a journal ever since. As a matter of fact, today I was looking at the boxes and boxes of journals I have stacked up in a closet in my home. And so I always thought of myself as a writer, and so I was passionate about writing very early on, and I never really thought about it as a career. I just knew it was something that I wanted to do, and I did all the time. And I always thought of myself as a writer. I didn't need to be published. And then eventually, as I grew up, I realized, oh, I'm a writer, and I'm probably going to publish. I actually have always had, Lacey, what we call a portfolio career. I've always done a number of different things. One of the things I really know about myself is I love variety. I used to judge myself for not picking the one career track. I'm going to be a lawyer or a doctor or an astronaut or a physicist or a teacher or an engineer. That was never my gig. And I grew up in a family business, and I am fortunate to have had such great training from my father in finances and money and business. My dad was a financial tax consultant, and I worked with him, and I learned all about the tax code and numbers and profit and loss and balance sheets. And I recommend that kind of training for everybody. It's really good to know numbers and money, because that will serve you in any career. But I've always been a woman who loves variety. Even in my own work, I write, I teach, I do Facebook Live, I post on social media, I run retreats, which are different than delivering keynotes. I also have a secret life. A lot of people don't know, as an angel investor. I've mentioned it, I think, before. I belong to an angel investment group in Boston, and I've invested, Michael and I together have invested in 13 or 14 companies doing really great work in the world. So I get to use all of my business skills in that world. I've been taking classes in angel investing for the last 3 years, studying term sheets and due diligence process, the due diligence process, and all kinds of really interesting work related to investing in businesses and helping the CEOs I invest in to grow their companies. So, there's a lot, Lacey, that's there. So I think all of us need to think of, we have to remember, passion is an emotion, right? It's feeling strongly about something. You can be really pissed about something. You can be really excited about something. You can be really curious about something. We can have these passionate feelings in a lot of different ways for a lot of different things, Lacey. And sometimes people discover that they want to just do a certain kind of job because they're skilled at it and it earns them a living, and they are able to have like a stress-free, secure source of income while they express their passion in a number of other ways. Chris Northrup loves tango dancing, and she's fantastic at it. She's a doctor, but she's not seeing patients anymore. She writes, she dances tango. I think about, like, so many of my friends have lots of different interests, and several of my colleagues do a lot of different things. So take the pressure off of yourself, sweetheart. Every career change just teaches us a lot about ourselves. I always like to say, sometimes the way to discover what you want to do is by doing what you don't want to do, and then recognizing, that's not for me. So financial stability is important. If you're not sure what you want to do, just get yourself a job using your skills so that you can earn a consistent source of income, and then give yourself permission to try lots of different things. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to get the financial stability in place, because otherwise you're always worried, and it's hard to enjoy exploring your passions when you're always scared about money, right? Okay. Oops, I hope that's helpful. Let's see, what do we get here? So Sarah says, I let go of many cookbooks. I still have a few I hardly use. I keep them anyway. I have a few I use. Okay, I thought that was a question. Wait a minute. I keep them anyway. I have a few that I use often as well. I feel stuck with them. Okay, so it is a question. So, you know, one of the things you can do, Sarah, is I learned this from Carrie, actually. This was a really great clutter tip from Carrie, because I told her about how it was so hard for me. Sometimes people would send me cards, and I would love them. They would be these beautiful cards. Have you ever had that happen, where someone sends you a card and you love it, so you keep it around you? Or I would get, sometimes, you know, it used to be I would get, like, I love beauty. Beauty is a high value of mine, and I would get a catalog with a beautiful picture in it, and I would collect beautiful pictures. And one day I was complaining to Carrie about, like, all the stacks of cards that I had that I loved, and I didn't want to get rid of them, but you can't, I just didn't want to have them all over the place. And she said to me, just take digital photos of them. You could make a collage and take a picture of it. I took digital photos of all of my treasure maps, because I had so many of them from like 20 years ago, and I didn't want to get rid of them. So I took digital photos. And she said, you know, every now and then when you're sitting around, you can just sort of scroll through, put it in an album, and label the album Beauty. You could create an album called Cookbooks, and you could go through your cookbooks and pull out the recipes you love the most, and then just take snapshots of them. Put them all in an album called My Favorite Cookbooks, and then give away your cookbooks to people. And start by the people closest to you. I find when I give clothes and special mementos away to the people closest to me, and they say they want them, oh, I just feel so happy to you know, release them, knowing that they're going to a good home, especially with people that I love and care about. So I always start with people that are close to me first, and then I always make sure that I find, we have a great thrift store in town, and whatever they don't sell, they donate to charities, and a lot of the money they make, they donate to charities. And I love knowing that my stuff is going to really good people. So Sarah says, oh my God, I just opened the drawer in my night table, and the first book that popped out was Women, Food, and God. Okay, I would call that a little divine moment, Sarah. You might want to read that book. Okay. Hi, Shelley. I'm glad you're here. Hi, let's see. Yes. Okay, let me see. Questions. Let's see. Hey, Carrie. Carrie's here. Yay, Carrie. Say hi if you're still here. Let people know. And Carrie says, I use food for joy. Yeah, boy. Carrie and I, how many times did we used to eat to celebrate things, or as a reward? Like, I don't know what, I think maybe growing up where we would have like scooter pies and ring dings and ding dongs, and they always felt like rewards. So I had to really start to look at how I would use food to reward myself after I did something. And instead, I started rewarding myself in better, healthier ways that didn't have to do with food. Okay, let's see. Questions here. Okay. So James says, Cheryl, I'm having trouble with my mom, who's living alone and a bit separated from friends and family. She's lashing out because of her loneliness, and I don't know how to help her get out of it. She's having trouble taking action, is increasingly angry and scared of life. Any info would be great. Many thanks. As you sip your water, I sip wine. Well, James, one of these days it's going to be wine. I'm going to be sipping wine with all of you too. That's a tough one, James. You know, as we get older, and this is so important for all of you, please God, hear me when I say this. It's so important to cultivate a relationship with our own selves and with our inner life. It's so important to do the work that we do here, honoring our feelings, paying attention to them, using food as a doorway into a journey of inquiry with ourselves, reading self-help books and doing the work in them, eliminating the clutter from our lives, but not just doing that, really looking at, why do I keep so much clutter around me? What is my clutter saying to me? You know, all of this work that we do to know ourselves better, to grow ourselves up, to become healthier people emotionally, physically, spiritually, to cultivate a relationship with God, the divine, however you define that for yourself, all of this work leads us through our life in a more open and less fearful way. We get scared. We grow more and more fearful the older we get when we don't do this work. And so I find that we need to be compassionate and understanding with our older loved ones who maybe haven't done this work and are coming to the end of their lives and are really terrified. So I say that, James, first of all, because you know, when my dad was really sick, there were some times where he could be really gruff and mean and just, you know, irritable and agitated. And I would always, and I would get my buttons pushed and I would regress and I would be like a little kid and I would just be hurt or pissed off or whatever. And as I went through the process and as I got help to deal with just emotional support from my really great therapist, it helped me to be more of an adult and to recognize, okay, I need to be the adult here. He's just scared, and I want to have compassion. Now, that said, James, sometimes it also means there's a few things I would recommend. You may need to limit the time that you spend with your mom, or bring other people into that situation. I don't know where you live, James. I'm assuming it's in the United States. I could be wrong, but there are a lot of resources available that people don't know about until you have to find out about it. You know, until you are suddenly dealing with an aging parent or a sick loved one. And there are a lot of resources available through things like Medicaid, Medicare. Sometimes it can be really helpful if you go to care.com. I'll put that down here too. Care.com provides really great access to people who, for pretty reasonable hourly rates, will provide care and companionship to older people. And sometimes the most loving thing, believe it or not, James, sometimes the most loving thing we can do is go to care.com, find a companion in that area. Your parent might have some real resistance to it at first, but if you bring that companion in or that caregiver in, and you do the hard work of finding the right personality match, you could actually create a beautiful relationship between you and between your mom and somebody else. The key is to get the right personality match. It's not just anybody, it's got to be the right person. And I found really amazing caregivers on care.com, and for a lot of different, that's where I go sometimes. Right now I'm looking for a local person, a local assistant to do errands and you know, just to kind of be like a great wife, really. And that's one of the places I would go, James. But they've got wonderful caregivers and companions for older people, and I would recommend that. If she's scared, you know, a lot of us, listen, when I'm scared, if Michael and I were walking down the street and he stepped into the street, and Michael does this to me too, and he stepped into the street and I thought he was going to get hit, my first reaction would be anger. I don't know why. I'm wired that way. I get angry when I'm scared, but I would catch myself because I have enough self-awareness. Michael has to work on that a little bit, I just want to say, because he still gets mad at me. If all of a sudden I go to step out and he thinks I'm going to get hit, he's overly protective and he just starts yelling at me. And I say to him, don't yell at me. You're supposed to like be protective, but not mean. He's not really mean. He just gets all upset. So sometimes we get angry when we're scared. And so trying to be with her when you can be in a place of compassion, you know, also remember that your soul can speak to your mother's soul. It's a great piece of advice I received long ago. When we're dealing with difficult people in our lives, whether we're with them or not, I really do believe that my soul can speak to my loved ones' souls. I have some loved ones right now who are really struggling and in difficult situations, and I talk to them at night. I imagine that my soul is talking to their soul at night when I go to bed, and it makes me feel better, and I actually believe it works. I really do. I know it does. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, so JD, what's your advice to all of us trying to process what is going on in Charlottesville and the frightening and disheartening dynamics of leadership in our local communities and in our government? So, JD, first of all, I would say that process is a good place to start, because one of the things we don't realize is when any kind of leadership, well, let me back up and say this. Whenever we are experiencing more visual violence than people in the history of the planet have seen because of our access to media. And when we see things like a car ramming into a group of people, it is traumatizing. So if we go way back to the beginning of my Facebook Live conversation when I talked about emotional regression, instantly when we're traumatized, we go into a regress state. So many of us are moving in and out of regress states. And I always, myself, first of all, I would not watch that video. I just could not watch that video. I would need to protect myself. I don't need to watch the video to be angry, to be intolerant of that kind of craziness at all. So I'm very protective about my own self-care in that regard. But of course, I certainly knew what was going on. We need time to process. And I think for all of us, rather than react, post, comment, scream, yell, we first need to process our own emotional experience of what's happened. That's the way we then communicate effectively in whatever way we do. That's the way we take action effectively. And action is important, but action from a regressed place doesn't help anybody. It's not our best way of taking something on and being a force for change. So processing the experience for yourself is important, and that happens in a number of ways. You could write about it, you could talk about it. I have a group of friends that I process emotionally all of the stuff that's going on with, all of the stuff that's going on in the world. Anytime something like that happens, I'm talking to my husband Michael about it. We're both processing it together. And then when I feel like I can grow myself back up, when I can deal with the trauma of that situation, and suddenly I can come from an adult place as best I can, then I will take action. This week's newsletter that I wrote to a Facebook follower who was upset with me, I did not write that to diss this person at all, and I hope that this person didn't feel that. I had compassion for that post. I wasn't thrilled about it because my first reaction, JD, when this person sort of accused me of being indifferent to Virginia because I didn't post about it, my first reaction was a regressed reaction. I was defensive and I was angry, like, who do you think you are? Blah, 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 blah. But I knew enough to step away from the computer. I did not respond to that post because that wouldn't have been my adult, compassionate, sane woman responding. It would have been a regressed kid, and I wouldn't have been happy with what I said. I knew that I would have regretted it. And I certainly didn't want to put it out into a community where I'm an example. My writing is an example. So I went away and I processed that experience. And the blog that I wrote this week in response to that was after processing it as best I could. I'm also human. I'm sure, if I wrote something different, it would be different a month from now. But we have to be able to process, and then we step back. And I find that the way to feel empowered is to do something, to be a force for good in the world. Whether you donate money to a cause, which is great, and I do, and I think that's important, but I also think we need to do something in terms of our interaction with other human beings. Whether you make phone calls, whether you are just more loving and kind to people in your community, whether you volunteer your time. I mean, you know, by taking action, by seeing that your force for good in the world can actually make someone's life better, makes you feel empowered and doesn't leave you feeling so helpless. You know, we are always in reaction to any political figure we have. Donald Trump is traumatizing many people just like Hillary Clinton was traumatizing. Just their persona, who we make them to be, causes us our own, you know, some people make Hillary mom, some people make Donald Trump dad, and then suddenly their reactions are all about the unhealed, unprocessed stuff from their own past experience. But we make it about them, and we comment as if it's about them. Now, that's aside from, you know, I'm not going to get into the politics. I mean, the people who have been following me have a good idea that I care about the planet, I care about people, I care about the horrific, you know, the myriad of horrific things that have been going on for a long time. It's heartbreaking to me. And I have to take care of myself because I'm telling you, there are some times where I think this world's just too hard a place to be in. But that's when I know I'm in a regress state and I need to go take care of myself. And so you got to do something every day, something to be a force for good in the world. And you have to believe that that makes a difference. Don't forget one person. You know, I always bring up Jesus. We're still talking about Jesus 2,000 years later. Look at the impact that one human being had on the planet. Gandhi, another great example. Rent the movie Gandhi and watch that movie again. That's like one of my favorite movies. You know, go to YouTube and watch Martin Luther King's speeches and recognize that one human being had a tremendous impact on the planet, and all of those people began in their communities where they were, one person at a time. So please empower yourself by taking action. Just take action from a grown-up, loving and compassionate place. And sometimes, even if it's from an angry place, just try to be as much of a grown-up as you can. I'm not saying we all have to be loving and compassionate all the time. Believe me, you guys should see me. When there's injustice around, and I've written about some of that, I can be the fiercest lioness going, believe me. Like, you don't want to get in my path. And sometimes that's important. But in fact, sometimes the best thing we can do is try to just be an adult. Try to be as understanding and compassionate and cut people slack, you know. And that doesn't mean that you put up with bullshit either. I mean, if people are mean and nasty on my page, which is so rare, I just delete them. That's good self-care too. The delete button can be really great self-care. Yes, Jessica says, can you recommend a book for the sensitive person, please? Absolutely. Elaine, Aron's book, Highly Sensitive People, is the Bible, as far as I'm concerned. And I will put that down as a resource as well. All right, my friends, we're coming to the end here, and I'm so sorry I didn't get to all of your questions. I hope that you will. I hope that you will please join me again next week, and I hope that some of you who are in the area who might want to join me for a weekend of an amazing weekend for a women's retreat will think about coming to the Healthcare by the Sea in October. It's going to be a wonderful retreat about falling in love with our bodies and becoming a great steward for our own healthcare journeys, and also becoming an empowered patient and choosing the right kind of healthcare providers and understanding the value and the importance of pleasure, all those sorts of yummy things. I'll post a link as well here. So in the meantime, thank you all for being here with me. Thank you for being for caring enough about yourselves to invest in your own growth and your own evolution. That in and of itself makes a huge contribution to the planet, I promise. And I promise you that. And I will look forward to being with you next week. Thank you for all the hearts. Mwah. I love you all very much. Take good care. Bye.